and 2 and 3. Let me see. Okay, hello everyone, the 5 continents, and welcome to another edition of our International English Online meetings. This morning we have a good friend of ours, Eugenia Carrión from Argentina. Hello, Eugenia.
Hi, Jaime. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Share my screen. Here it is. Okay, give me a minute, please. Let's see if I can expand the PPT. It takes some seconds. Okay, so welcome everyone, as I said before, to our World Educators community. Today is our, not 14th, this is 124th International English Online, and today is November the 10th. So if anybody wants to contact me, these are my social nets. That's my WhatsApp telephone number. We have two more meetings coming up. On December the 8th, our good friend, Deborah Suarez from the USA. She will be talking about sharing wisdom, inspiring new possibilities, EL teacher leadership. And in December, we'll have our live Christmas and New Year celebration facts. So who is our guest speaker today? Let's learn something about Eugenia Carrión Cantón. Is an experienced English and Spanish language educator with a strong background in teaching, curriculum development, and educational innovation, extensive expertise in English as a foreign language, cultural studies, and critical citizenship. Proven leadership, let me see, in teacher training and educational management, active contributor to research and publications at national and international language. Currently serving as the president of FAAPI, Federación of Argentina Association of EFL Teachers, writing a dissertation for a master's in education and pursuing a master's in foreign languages with a focus on sociodidactic, intercultural, and plurilingual problems. So thank you so much, dear Eugenia. Thank you for giving us part of your time on a Sunday morning, and the screen is all yours. Go on.
Okay, thank you very much for the invite, as I said before, and thank you for this wonderful presentation. I'm happy to see all my pictures, right, with the family and different things. That's very interesting. Thank you for the people who are interested in this presentation. So let me check that the
While
PowerPoint
you
is
are
working
opening your
properly.
PPT, let me say good morning to Fernanda from Brazil, Marcos Aparicio from Mexico, and Maria Campos. Go on, Eugenia.
Okay, so let me check. Yes, everything is going all right.
Yes.
Well, as you very well said, I am in the process of writing my dissertation for my master's in education, and I am attending a master's degree in foreign languages and plurilingualism. So these are the areas of that I will be sharing with you today. The presentation today is called Mind Your Language, Developing Plurilingual Awareness, Translanguaging, and Critical Citizenship in ELT. This is the, I would say, areas of research that I've been developing or throughout these years. And of course, today, right, I'm going to share with you some insights and some concerns and questions that I've been, let's say, asking myself about, and also sharing some insights from colleagues that have been working on these topics for so long. So before we start with that, I would like to share, right, and this is especially for Spanish speakers, right, I would like to share some, let's say, something with you all. Let me see. Finger crossed that everything works properly. So let's see. Can you listen?
Yeah, we can hear.
¿Cómo andás, men?
¿Qué hace, Master?
¿Cómo estuvo el show?
Al principio medio heavy, loco, pero después se puso recontra power.
Te traje el merchandise.
En serio, loco, qué flash.
Parece que andás
a full.
Que conociste en la web para invitarlo al pub. Compraste cigarrillos en el drugstore. Encargaste una pizza en el delivery. Una hora chateaste de cyberbar. Ya a tu PlayStation le compraste un joystick. No navegas internet, se te rompió el mouse. Escucha tu copa que en el Dixman, que cambiaste por tu viejo Walkman. Te aburriste de pasear en roller, te cansaste de tu mountain bike. Es más divertido saltar en skate. Estamos cada vez más chanquis. 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 Estamos cada vez más chanquis.
Okay, as you can see, right, this song that is in Spanish is full of, or let's say, words that are in English. You can see man and master and show and heavy and email and delivering and personal training. And the song says all the time that we are more and more, let's say, more Yankees in the way that we speak Spanish, right? And well,
Right.
I would say that this is quite curious. This is a great song to start this presentation, to show us, right, to, let's say, help us focusing on this plurilingualism and, let's say, translanguaging that I would like to focus my attention on. So let's share, right, the agenda for today, right? So in today's presentation, I would like to revisit the concepts of plurilingualism, translanguaging, and also critical citizenship, and the reason to make them aware in education. Also to reflect the importance of plurilingualism, translanguaging, and critical citizenship awareness in teaching English as a foreign language. Of course, also to explore how plurilingualism, translanguaging, and critical citizenship are related to provide ways to incorporate them in the English classes. And of course, right, to share some ways to incorporate that. If we have the time, I brought up some examples that might help us a little bit. Of course, I will see if by the end, right, if you have some questions, I will be delighted to answer them. So let's go for that. So the first thing that I would like to share with you is this change of perspective and evolution of society away from language myth. This is a chart that I use from Picardo, right? That is one of the authors that I follow. If you pay attention here, if we look at the changes over the year, we have seen that there is an increase in social diversity and linguistic diversity that triggers a big debate at all levels. This chart that I said before was made up by Picardo in 2021, has some key points that can help us reflect on that and to provide some categories, right? If you pay attention to the first one, this green spot over there, right there, we are going to focus on Bauman, right? Bauman, that is the author from Liquid Modernity to refer to, right, the postmodern society, gives us this metaphor, right, saying that our societies are so open, right? That there is a possibility of changing, of flowing, what somebody can criticize, right, in relation to globalization, I would say. Bautman is also critical of the globalization and the difficulty of categorizing and putting things into clear boundaries, he says, when he refers to this liquid modernity. He is critical, but he also sees the potential of that. In cultural studies, right, when we refer specifically to language and culture, we talk of the flows of linguas and culture along national boundaries, which again has a positive aspect and also some challenges, I would say, right? The OECD, right, refers to the highly dynamic social tapestry, right? And defense gives this idea that our societies are deterritorialized, right? Or re-territorialized. This means that we are migrant, right? Moving from a territory to another. So the old maps that make only up on a certain point because people are moving, right? And with this movement of people from a territory to another, also the cultures, right, become different. And we can use these immigrants' languages and cultures as catalyzers for change, I would say. So this is the panorama we are immersed in, I would say. And if we go into more depth, right, in the language, we can see that language is, as the slide says, cognitively developed and socially constructed, right? And in this research that is basically something that right, we are discussing here, we can conceive, for example, that is psychologically, this psychocognitive perspective shows that individuals with more than one language are not the same that individuals with one language only, right? And because in our brains, there is a neuroplasticity that is changing all the time. So the fact that we have different languages make us a different provide us a different social-cultural perspective, right? We acquire languages as a situated practice, and we have an active role to play in tasks together and alone. And these tasks, are constantly shaped and reshaped. So as we said before, we consider psychocognitive perspective, social cultural perspective as well, and definitely, right, pedagogical perspective, as the slide very well says. Actively fostering the use of multiple languages teaches, right, this awareness over not only over learning the language, but also of being, let's say, empathic, right, and sympathetic towards, right, the others, right? And well, as we said before, this flourishing in this idea of using multiple languages in class and in teaching is increasing towards the language awareness, as I mentioned before, rather, right, and towards the single language as well. We are seeing pluralistic, right, from a pluralistic approach, right, in two ways of immersion, right, different translanguages pedagogies and plurilingual pedagogies as well. So let's have a look at these two, right, examples of international students, right? I would like to share with you these two profiles of students of English as second language. I'm sure you may know them because they are very well-known people, right? So the first one that I've got on my right is, well, Malala Yousafzai, that is from Pakistan. Well, Malala is a very well-known activist, right? She's from Pakistan. And on the left we've got Evan Wodongo. As I said before, I'm sure you know both of them, and if not, let me tell you a little bit about them. Well,
don't.
Malala, right, is a recognized activist in education, and she has received the Nobel Prize of piece because she, let's say, she has been, let's say, working for education quite a lot. Let's focus on her in terms of, let's say, language. She speaks. Oh, let me, I will put everything over here so you can see that. Oh, let me see. She speaks Pashto as a mother tongue, and she is also fluent in Urdu and Swahili. She also learned English as a second language. In the case of Evans, Evans received the Heroes Award in 2013. He is an engineer now. And he was, I mean, this was also very relevant because he brought an invention about a lamp for the community, right? He became very, very famous because of that. But when he was younger, I was about to tell you, he realized that he liked the way, I mean, he wanted to do a contribution to his own community. He realized that the children of his community couldn't study at night at his village because the kerosene, right, damaged their eyes. Well, there was never enough kerosene at the community because it was really very expensive. So what did he do? So he invented a cost-free solar lamp. Now, the children in his village can study and have, right, similar grades that children who have electricity at home. So he became very well known because of that, and that was the reason why he won the award, the international award in 2013. He speaks, as the slide says, Swahili as a mother tongue, and he is also fluent in Bantu and English as a second language. And he is learning also Mandarin because of his profession. So what I mean here is coming back right from the theoretical background that I provide some slides ago, that these two people are not only English learners. They've got a background, right? So he's not only an English learner and she's not only an English learner. Both of them have different backgrounds and lots of insights to share in class. Now, in the class, really, if we do not allow students to share their linguistics profiles, all we are going to see from them is that they are persons that are learning English in a particular context. And if we not only, let's say, if we have an only English approach, students' repertoires are often reduced to English only, and teachers are there to provide English language teaching for those students. So my point here is that focusing on, let's say, language repertoires and focusing on translanguaging, we need to widen the scope a little bit just to help, right, in their own learning process and also to make our teaching process richer, I would say. We can say that students are much more, right, than the way, let's say, in many ways, that more knowledge that is learned by students moves from a culture to another. Sometimes they learn things in English, sometimes they learn, let's say, other concepts in different languages, right? And this should be enhanced and valued in the English classroom. So far, so good. Please tell me, right? Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right.
I don't know, it's just a minute while you drink water, if Fernanda or Marco from Mexico, Fernanda from Brazil, or Maria Campos or Sara Guevara have a question or a comment to make.
You can do it in the chat box, but I believe that I can see some thumbs up. So I believe that is fine. You let me know by the end then, right?
Okay.
So as you can see over here, so this notion of repertoire, of linguistic repertoire, is not new, right? We have been, right, implied this applied linguistics when we are in a multi or plural turn, which requires an inclusive and integrated view of language. Language is not English only. It is a repertoire, right, of not only languages, varieties of language, semiotic resources, multi-moralities, also life experiences, and of course, as integrated this repertoire is always fluctuating, right, from a language and from a culture to another. Sometimes we use resources from one language or another, or from one experience to another, right? Or an emotion, right, that is triggered in one language or in another, rather than, right, these experiences are valued in the language classroom, no doubt. So we should reflect on when students come to us from abroad, and we may not be given enough credit from what they know, their knowledge, right, if it is not considered in English. I am referring to us, all of us, as teachers of English as foreign language. When a language dies, and this is very important, there are lots of, let's say, items and concepts and knowledge that could be shared within students that in many situations does not come in English, right? Or could not, it's not, let's say, necessary, very well expressed in English, but it is necessary to be transmitted in order to expand that scope that the student would like to learn, right, in the development of the English language that he or she is speaking. And I refer to this repertoire because when a language dies, we don't know what we lose with that language. Sometimes the visions, the ways in which an idea, an expression, a concept is materialized in a language, it is very difficult to, let's say, to make equals, right? Or to strike a balance in a different one. So we as teachers of English should be quite aware of that situation, I would say. So now, right, focusing on this, right, let's focus on these two approaches, right, that are very in line one with the other, right? This plurilingualism and translanguaging, right, that turn in applied linguistics. Plurilingualism and translanguaging, and I'm sure that you have already heard about them, these approaches, many times. We have been working with both of them for a long time. And there might be, let's say, many people who still, right, have some issues, right, recognizing one and the other, right? So plurilingualism, very briefly, is we are going to focus on that and what translanguaging is as well. And let's see if we can, let's say, establish some coincidences and some things that they share and some aspects in which they differ, I would say. Many scholars have already written about them, and they have highlighted some differences and similarities that I would like to share with you. So here I would like to share some insights in relation to the scholars that have been doing some research and working on that, big names and representation that I'm sure that it's worth mentioning, right, before we establish these differences, right? These are big names and representatives, in my opinion, right, are worth mentioning, as I said before. This is the case of Ofelia Garcia, for example, right? Enrica Picardo, as I mentioned before, from where I took this chart that I shared with you some minutes ago. Angelica Galante from Canada as well. Michelle Occhiarino as well, right? Both of them, Angelica, right? And Michelle from Brazil, right? And our Argentinian colleagues, right? Also, Leandro Paladino and Virginia Lopez Irizolia, who are also working on these topics, right? We share this interest in research. So, focusing on these two concepts, right? Some of the similarities between plurilingualism and translanguaging is that both emerge as concepts in Europe. They have theoretical and pedagogical underpinnings. Both reject monolingual ideologies to see, the students only as English language learners, as I said before, and they value and enhance, students' repertoire. There are few differences in terms of when they emerge. Both have been implemented in many countries, although translanguaging has a great popularity in the US. Both agree with the notion of repertoire, as I mentioned before. One difference may be that plurilingualism names the languages, for meaning making, I would say, the languages that are involved in the repertoire of a speaker. Whereas, for translanguaging, they may see this repertoire without the boundaries, I would say, in a more integrated way. Now, I use, let's focus on these plurilingual pedagogies. There is a huge list of focusing in different aspects, but all of them go within plurilingualism. As you can see in this line of thoughts of plurilingual pedagogy, here we've got an umbrella term of that. It is an umbrella term that has several types of approaches. And I am not only, the one who has implemented plurilingual pedagogies. It may be taken up differently depending on the context and on the approach. The program, the students, well, as you can see, languaging, translanguaging, cross-linguistic approaches, cross-cultural and intercultural approaches, intercomprehension, linguistic landscaping, translation, pluriliteracy, multimodality, and so on and so forth, So basically, I would mention some of them, when we focus on languaging, for example, we are talking about language as you are learning it. When you focus on translanguaging as one of these plurilingual pedagogies, is using of this fluid linguistic repertoire as you are learning a language in contexts. Where, for example, if we pay attention to this cross-linguistic approach, which is comparing with languages and taking a look at the linguistic items in the language for their own learning. When you focus on cross-cultural and intercultural approaches, well, here we have the culture, as central, I would say, and it is a very important dimension for the development of plurilingual pedagogy. Intercomprehension, that is trying to understand the language, and even though, you may not learn it, but you use some of the repertoire of the language that you are in the process of learning. Linguistic landscaping, taking a look, at the landscape in society where you are immersed in, and we can move forward, over all the list that is not, let's say, is not a limited list, but there are many scholars that have been working with this umbrella term of plurilingual pedagogies. Yes, Fernanda, I will take your question maybe by the end of the session. Is that okay? I don't know, Jaime?
No, it's up to you, Eugenia.
Okay. Fernanda, if
to
you would like to make a comment on this, go on.
Yeah, I would like
For me, it's
Fernanda
okay.
to make the comment, because let me be honest, I use Google to try to understand the difference, and it says in Spanish, it says plurilingualism is the simultaneous presence of two or more languages in the communicative competence of a person and the interrelationship that is established among them. And when I checked about multilingualism, is the flexible use of all the resources, the linguistic resources that the person has. So
that's why I mentioned at the beginning that this is within the pedagogies of plurilingual pedagogies, there are focus, right? Many scholars have been working on focusing either on the let's say, mention the languages that you are learning at the same time, consider or focusing on the culture or on the teaching process. There are different focus, right? And that's why I wanted to share this with you, right? The differences are really very, I would say, quite slight.
Yeah.
All of them, right, consider, as we said before, this repertoire when learning language, in this case of a foreign language, and languages in general. But well, they focus on different aspects. Yes, Fernanda, you wanted to ask a question or to make a comment?
Well, I thought you said you would leave until the end. It's up to you if you want to answer now.
All right, as you wish. If you believe that is related to
I
what we
think
are
it's-
saying right now,
yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
related. It's related. So in your own teaching, how would you define those terms in your own teaching?
Well, you know that, I mean, I am more familiar with, in the practice, I would say, with some, right, than with some specific, like the case of cross-cultural and intercultural approaches, right, than when, let's say, languaging, for example, right? But these specifications in terms of pedagogies, of plurilingual pedagogies, in my experience, right, work all together depending on the focus that you would like to provide in the class, right? Sometimes it is the cultural aspect that you emphasize because of a reason, right? In some of the cases, it is the culture, I would say the linguistic repertoire in terms of the development of a concept that you focus on. But this moves according to the pedagogies and the didactic purpose that you consider. Of course, we are making conscious, we are acknowledging the fact that all these different, let's say, manners, right, of teaching occur within, right, the English class at the same time, and that we choose whether to focus on one or another, right, depending on the purpose of classes, right? But the most important point that I would like to point over here is that it is the plurilingual approach what enriches, right, a foreign language class, considering that there are different dimensions, right, when you are teaching a language that go, let's say, all together in the process of learning and also in the process of teaching as well, right? So just, I would say that, right? I would say that. Let's move forward, and I would make myself clear considering this this approach and connecting this together with the development of critical citizenship that is also, let's say, one of my concerns. So let's
Okay.
move forward. So let's say, why using translanguaging in teaching? So we move from something more theoretical into something more concrete. That is my point. So as you can see on the slide, right, why is it that we need to use, or for me, that is important to use translanguaging in the English foreign English teaching, teaching foreign English foreign as a foreign language? Sorry, to enable students to engage and comprehend the complex content and text they are surrounded with. Jaime mentioned something at the very beginning of this presentation that says, well, do you believe that students read less nowadays? Or, well, I believe that the content and the texts they are surrounded with has changed a lot. And they've got a complexity that we need to understand. And if we do not allow some other elements to intervene, right, in their process of learning, right, it would be very difficult to, let's say, to give voice, to provide a context, and to see the whole complexity of, let's say, of the knowledge that students can share with us while they are learning a foreign language, in this case, English as a foreign language. Also to develop students' linguistics practice in academic contexts, to make space for students to draw on their plurilingualism and plurilingual ways of learning. As we said some minutes ago, sometimes you learn, you become closer, let's say, to knowledge in one language or in another one. Also to support students' social emotional development and plurilingual identities and advance in social justice. For me, this is also very important, right? The access, right, to materials, the possibilities of learning, right? The approaching knowledge not only from a pragmatic perspective, but for the sake of learning as well, right? So let's construct a translanguaging space. How can we do that? By building metalinguistic awareness. This is very important. Reflection, metalinguistic reflection, right? Asking students about what they are learning, making them reflect about that. Building linguistic tolerance towards each other. Working against linguistic hierarchies. This is also very important. And again, we go back to this idea of learning. How does learning occur? Does learning occur only in one language? I don't believe that. And well, I've been reading that for quite a long time, and I don't agree with that. However, languages do have certain hierarchies according to the context of use, according to the, let's say, the context in which they are more visible, I would say, and the purpose they pursue. Involving families and others, developing multiliteracies, again, different modes of approaching texts, acting as co-learners, recognizing building on linguistic strength, putting classroom language repertoires in conversations with each other. Did we know about, right, all the repertoire that Malala and Evan had? Definitely not. And if we do not ask about that, this is an aspect of the development of these professionals that we ignore. Questioning dictionaries and textbooks, asking, doing this mediation that I mentioned some minutes ago, and also recognizing the variability of language. Again, reflection, meta-linguistic reflection, intercultural reflection is crucial for the making awareness of the learning process. So let's see some examples, right? For example, in the case of listening, well, you can allow students to explain and share ideas either in language one, that is the language of, let's say, of learning, right, or the mother tongue, and in language two, that is the language that they are learning, the second language or the foreign language. Students can interview one another using language one, and then share ideas in language two, let's say moving from a language to another one. In speaking, students can work in small group so they can use both languages, and then they present in the second one. Thank you, Fer. Some examples for reading and writing. Students can read in the second language, in the language that they are learning, I would say, and they discuss and analyze in their own mother tongue, for example. Encourage students to read and research, right, for research projects in both languages, focusing attention on what is it that they are learning, and then presenting the language that they are practicing. Also, writing allows students to pre-write in both languages, then publish in the second language. What I mean is to create multilingual word walls, create cognate charts, use multilingual graphic organizers, for example. These are just some examples that we can share. So let's move on into, right, my second concern, that is this idea of working towards social justice and critical citizenship. And
Do
of
you allow
course,
me a question, Eugenia?
yes,
Sorry.
of course, of course.
We were in this conference in Colombia this week, and one of the topics was more translanguaging. And everyone was talking about that in most institutions, professors are not allowed to use L2, sorry, L1, sorry, L2. So they only had to use English. Even the students could not use their mother tongue. And you mentioned
well,
something before that
yes,
in the
of course.
United
Well, this
States.
is a tendency that in the world is changing abruptly,
Yes,
right?
and I love it.
Yes, it is because knowledge is not construct only in one language. So
Yeah,
we need to
definitely.
allow space for that. The point is that we need to take decisions over these approaches. And
Yeah,
well, in that case, again, going back to the idea of giving voice, right, to the purpose of teaching and learning languages, in this case, English as a foreign language.
okay, very
If you
quick.
ask me, I would say this is something that, right, universities and teaching training colleges are working quite forward in, right?
Yes.
Sometimes this has to do with taking decisions as the, let's say, linguistic policies. And
Yes,
this is something that we need to discuss as well, right?
has to do
Sometimes,
with
and this
policy.
is also what it comes that the teachers, in this case, teachers of English or professors at university, English professors, cannot do away with the responsibility we do all have as educators.
Yeah.
And this is
Let's
something we need to be aware of, right?
Yeah.
We are not just away from the discussion and just only, right, a utilitarian idea of teaching a language. Well, I teach what the way it is said only. Let's question that. Let's consider the context. Let's focus and on the community you are immersed in, right? You cannot have a kind of an aseptic vision of teaching, not any longer.
Yes.
Not any longer. We are political activists, definitely, because we are
Definitely.
teaching,
And I
right?
agree with you 100%. Let's give Sara Guevara from
Yes.
Colombia a quick minute, please. Sara Guevara from Colombia.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Sara.
I
How are
just
you?
wanted to give my opinion because I'm a teacher here in Colombia, of an academy, and for us is not allowed just to speak in Spanish to our students. So in A1, for example, we just have to try to always speak in English, and we're not supposed to speak in Spanish. They can like them. The goal here is make them speak English, but I think in a fourth way. So sometimes it is kind of difficult for them to express, for example, what they think about a class, or maybe they feel afraid of participating in the class because they cannot like express their thoughts in a freely way. So
Of course.
that's kind of difficult. And maybe I would like, for example, to investigate a lot of about translanguaging, and that's the reason why I'm here in this meeting, because I consider it so important for me, like to know different tendencies or different approaches that I can use in my classes. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And here I'm learning that it's so important, like to express my students that they can use their L1. That is truly important, because sometimes they are like, no, I don't want to express what I think, or I cannot express my ideas or my thoughts because of the way that that I am being taught. And sometimes as a teacher, I question myself if I am doing well my work. But then it is like, okay, I'm doing it. But I think my students are not doing the role that they have as students, so they don't participate because they feel afraid about speaking in English, or even in presentations or different things. But then it's so interesting because I didn't know anything about translanguaging. And then in the Congress that the professor at Kahima was mentioning, I was there and I was so interested on translanguaging. And that's why maybe I'm here in this meeting. And it is so good to be here right now.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for your comment. Something that it's very, of course, we are language teachers. we shouldn't forget about that. But the point is that we don't need to think that the teaching process is at risk because we allow our students to include an idea, right, in the process of constructing knowledge in Spanish, in the case of Spanish or Portuguese or any other language. Much on the contrary, right, that is going to be enhanced in the process of learning, right, this new language that he or she is learning. Of course, we will be teaching the linguistic system, right? Grammar, vocabulary, right? And all the skills. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that the learning process is much more than the linguistic system, and that we need to acknowledge that. If we do not consider that and we do not include let's say linguistic this meta-linguistic reflection, right, if we don't consider intercultural reflection, showing ourselves who we are, what is it that we can let's say add into the class from our own experiences, we are neglecting all that, right? Well, students are going to learn, in this case, English, that is the language that we all teach, right, in a more I would say instrumental way, without considering who they are and all the knowledge they bring to the class, because we are not a tabula rasa that come to the English class without knowing anything but the English that the teacher is providing with, right? We are learning much more, many other aspects of life. And even if you think about not only young students, but also adults, much more. So the fact of acknowledging that helps in the process of assimilating, embracing, right, learning the development of the skills, right? They favor that. Of course, we shouldn't forget that we are language teachers and that the linguistic system should be taught, no doubt about it. But it does not end over there. We need to provide something else for students to really intake the language, and that they can move beyond the right language in academic context, or right going on holidays or whatever, right, the context of teaching would be, right? So of course, in this kind of webinar, right, my idea and the invitation that I happily accept from Jaime, it's for us, right, colleagues, to discuss and to reflect upon, right, our own pedagogies, right, and what is it that we are doing in class. In some countries, within Latin American countries, there is a frame, right, linguistic policies that frame, right, our own teaching. And in some other countries, right, it is only due to the, let's say, the perspective of international exams or let's say different conventions. In my personal opinion, right, if we need to summarize over this topic, right, the issue is related to the perception of the teaching language. Is teaching a language or learning a foreign language a commodity that certain groups can have access to, or is it a right to every single person? So from there on, right, the perspectives are quite different one from another, right? And you develop all these pedagogies that can help us make concrete these ideas that we that many colleagues share on the one hand or on the other one. And that's why I wanted to bring this issue of translanguaging together with critical citizenship, that I believe that are very closely, right, related. Okay, so that's why I would like, I don't know, Jaime, is that is okay with you? We can move forward.
Please do.
All right, okay, good. So as you can see, right, well, Paulo Freire is there, is one of my my sources of inspiration, together with many other colleagues that follow, right, this philosophy and perspective, and something that Paulo Freire, one of the quotes that are very important in my personal opinion in relation to languages, teaching languages, is this one that says, to read the word and to read the world that we are immersed in. That is very important, right? To understand the context in which that teaching and that learning is happening, not to limit neither the student nor the teacher, but much on the contrary, to, let's say, learn languages to express about ourselves, to raise their own voice, to have a voice in the world and to express ideas in the world. Let's see. So this first concept that I wanted to share with you, right? I think that it was clearly expressed. And the second one, towards the development of critical citizenship, is this one that is brought by Lancashire and Noble. There are two authors that I really highly consider as well. This concept of to work right on the digital literacies as well, and to understand these new literacies. The quote says, becoming critical must be based on a reflection that is consciously guided by the intention to change understanding of the world, and in the same process change that world we inhabit. So it's not only what we expect the world to be, but also the world we are immersed in, right? Just to work on both dimensions, right? What my utopia, my idea, right? But also the world that I am immersed in. This reflection upon the world and the process to change it. So, well, as I mentioned for translanguaging, I also would like to share some big names that have framed my study as well, right? That I believe that are worth mentioning, right? And to share with you tonight. Well, here, right, we've got Raewyn Connell, that is an Australian sociologist that I believe that is worth listening to her and reading her. Paulo Freire, as I said before, Alistair Pennycook, that I'm sure that you know, Donaldo Macedo, and Jeff Shea, right? All of them, right, professors of English as a foreign language and some other profession as well. In the case of, well, here, these are their books for you to learn about them, and well, if you know them, to share, right? Donaldo Macedo is the author from Decolonizing Foreign Language in Education, right? Jeff Shea is the author of Critical Media Literacy Guide. Then we've got Schools and Social Justice from Raewyn Connell, and well, Paulo Freire, that is very well known as well. In the case of Raewyn Connell, I will focus this idea of critical citizenship in three concepts that she focuses on, right? She says that critical citizenship is made up of social justice, citizenship, and also a concept that is coined by her, that is the concept of good education, she says, right? We're going to explore this a little bit. In relation to, right, social justice, generally speaking, we can say that social justice is the notion that all people in society deserve fair and equitable rights, opportunities, and access to resources. When we focus on citizenship, right, we've got a, let's say, definition, right, from UNESCO, right, from Delors and Kimelka, that are two scholars and let me see, they are interviewers as well. Record. I don't recall that the profession in a minute. I will tell you about it. They say that citizenship is in the center of international debate during the 90s. Look at these definitions. Schools are entitled to work toward education of good citizens, they say. They are able to critically participate in democratic constructions of societies with a sense of identity, and able to work with others and to make responsible decisions. So since 1990, they've been working on this idea of education is related to the development of good citizenship, participation of democratic construction, the sense of identity, and working with others collaboratively, right, in responsible decisions. Well, this is very much related to what we mentioned before, right?
Definitely.
Reporters. I wanted to say reporters before, sorry. So, and in Connell's view, related to this idea of citizenship, Connell believes that the idea of citizenship, as the slide says, right, has two phases, she says, that they are more sharply contrasted in education. They say that citizenship, on the one hand, at school is regulated, right, with social control. This means we at school learn what is correct and what is incorrect. And on the other hand, the development of citizenship happens at school also, right, when we do claiming of rights. So the two things happen at the same time in school. And this is really interesting, right, because everything happens at the same time in the same context. So for Raywin Connell, the concept of good education, a good education is that one that is practical. This means that is related to the real world, the world that we are immersed in. It is sustainable as long as it reflects the welfare of the society over the time. It should also be pro-social. This means social justice should show usefulness of knowledge. This means that knowledge should have an impact on the society you are immersed in. And finally, she says, right, it should be creative in the sense of they should go with the nature of learning. And what is the nature of learning? Curiosity, right? Expanding knowledge, and so on and so forth. So we can say, well, what is the relationship between critical citizenship and English language teaching? Well, I would say that, in my opinion, critical citizenship should be part of the mission of every educator and every right school. These skills develop the ability for social justice, the ones we mentioned: problem solving, critical thinking, collaboration, perseverance, right, and many others. So the following question would be, in what ways are EFL teachers qualified to teach critical citizenship in the classroom? This is the question that comes over and over again. Well, I've got more questions than answers in that. But I would say that it depends on educators' roles in society. In my humble experience in my country, in Argentina, we've got the law of education and some national documents that provide framework for that and can help us, right, let's say, providing teaching in a multidimensional and inclusive paradigms along three axes, I would say: learning axis, intercultural axis, and citizenship axis. This means this is the way English should be taught in Argentina. Here we've got some examples of of different events. I've been let's say promoting teaching training colleges. This is the one EFL for the development of inclusion and citizenship at the teaching training college. Some let's say events in defense of teaching training colleges at national level, at international levels, right, to share. So what I mean by these examples, by sharing these examples, is that, right, teaching critical citizenship is not let's say a corpus of knowledge, but it's an approach to technology, to rules and norms, to content, right, more than a bound of knowledge. And well, how can we materialize that? Well, this could be, in my opinion, right, there are many ways in which you can approach the development of critical citizenship. In my opinion, I've been working with these three: with the arts, with mentoring, and with community projects. but there might be many others, right? That I'm sure that all of you, let's say, can share some experiences on, right? In terms of the arts, well, we've got some examples of that. Well, I am teaching at the moment, I'm teaching at the University of José C. Paz, and this is an example of, let's say, the intervention of a poem, right? With some development of critical citizenship by means of, right, allowing our students to intervene a text and to work on a text. This is an exercise in the class, right, with their own contexts. The text or the poem, it's a template text in which you just let's say complete with I am from, right? I am from poem, that is a very well-known exercise that you can do, but that provides the possibility of students to express about their repertoires, their context, their motivations for learning. Well, here you can have access to one of them. I am from next week on Vanilas, where a lovely afternoon snack after school when I was a child, and I smelled the roses as Granny's hands invited to a late in there, and so on and so forth, right? There are many examples that can give us the possibility of showing this intercultural approach, showing the development of the students in their own context, and from that context, their motivations for learning. In the case of mentoring, right, here I've got some examples. What do I mean by that? How can we develop the development of critical citizenship at the university level? Well, by means of mentoring, by helping students and scaffolding the learning of pre-services teachers to participate in collaborative work, to publish together, teachers and students, to present at conferences, to do activities all together. Well, this is one of the examples, right? With students, we've been presented at national and international level together with students, teachers, and students since 2012, right? In different projects, students write projects for IATEFL, participating at FAAPI, right? And providing projects not only, right, as a source of experience with the students, but that the students become protagonists of that as well. This is really very important. Well, and finally, I would say community projects as well. Community projects are really highly motivating for the students to let's say, realize and to be aware of the dimension of the impact of their teaching process in their own communities. We've got here at the Teaching Training College a special subject that is called Responsabilidad Social a través de proyectos de intervención. The aim of that is to promote social responsibility, to strengthen the preparation of future teachers, to promote participations of students, and they prepare different projects for the community they are immersed in. They have some examples. All of these are real projects that, let's say, had taken part in the community. Gamification to teach English to the community, language camps, right? International language center as well, maps and audio guides for blind people, special communities in and games, resources for libraries, and many other things. This is the one for mapping. This is a project that we made together with the Teaching Training College, the program of biology for blind students, English program and biology programs working together. Well, then teaching English to older adults and many others. You can see that there are many, many different projects, right? So there's always a triggering element that can make a difference. A piece of art, a collaborative project, an opportunity to share all we have learned apart from the linguistic system, I would say, or to enhance that, right? We can move from a poem to a campaign. Here we have some examples of that. from a subject to a community project. And I would say that some considerations to wrap up, if we would like to enhance this teaching and to work on a critical citizenship twist, we should consider our aims for teaching, the topics and the themes, of course, the linguistic contents, the functions and the skills that we would like to share and to teach, and then to consider whether, this project, lesson, or let's say, lesson, project, or even an activity, right, contributes to social justice. How, in which way can this contribute to the community we are immersed in? Is it practical? Is it pro-social? Is it sustainable? Is it creative, right? If we consider all this, I'm sure that we would be able to make a great contribution to our classes, apart from teaching simple past, simple present, present continuous, or whatever, right, in class. So
Let me
it's all,
ask.
I would say that it's all about language. Just to end up, we
Yeah.
are ready to make that difference, because it is high time that we all learn that language, all languages matters, and that getting involved matter too, to empower our students in new ways of seeing language, to stand for their own opinions, to talk about their current issues, and also to take action and to change the world. That is what we teach for our students, to change the world, to be able to recognize these situations, right? And to the development of critical citizenship, right? Just working on the skills we mentioned before. So some concluding thoughts. Teaching a foreign language should always be bigger than teaching grammar and vocabulary, I would say.
Definitely.
Teaching a new language should imply moving away from the deficit of students' language. Translanguaging is about accepting the other languages as an EFL context, allowing great things to happen in the class. Teaching a language will always be a political act, and it is up to us to provide our students with critical citizenship experiences to get them involved in their own communities. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, and that you are, let's say, that you become as passionate as I am about the topic. Thank you very much, right, for this time and for your attention. Well, and I will be silent for a while now.
No, thank you so much, dear Eugenia, because I'm sure that you have created a lot of questions inside our minds to Fernanda, Marco, Maria, and the people who are listening to us. I have many questions, like, for example, I don't know, you want to make a question, Fernanda, or make a comment, Marco or Maria? No?
No, go ahead.
Would you say that this would happen much more frequent in the USA, where there are students from different countries, cultures, or in England?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think so, right? It depends on the, the aim of learning, and it should happen in every single class in which we are teaching English,
Yeah,
I would say,
that's the second question.
depending on the context.
Yeah, that's my second question. In what moments of the class would you do activities like this, or you would just have one day to do that, or in any class?
Jaime, as I said before, this is an approach into teaching. It
All
is
right.
not that I would be teaching that,
All
but
right.
there's always something that happens in the class that provides the space, right, for that, either the reflection or the taking action, right, within the community you are immersed in. So in every single class, there is a twist for critical citizenship and for the space of, let's say, the use of more than one language. It is not that I will be teaching critical citizenship, not at all. Right? It happens within the projects, the lessons, or the activities in which we all participate.
I like everything that you presented. Thank you so much, dear Eugenia. I need to read definitely to
Okay.
to
Well, you
consult.
can have the presentation definitely. I can share the presentation with all of you.
Please,
No worries.
I will appreciate that so I can share it with the group in the community, the
Okay.
WhatsApp. Yeah, definitely.
You can
Fernanda,
enjoy the Sunday, the rest of the Sunday then. Thank you very
yeah,
much for being here.
no, thank you. So Fernanda or Marco or Maria Campos, something to say to our guests today?
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing so many ideas and insight on this, because I think we've been thinking about it for some time, and the more that people talk about it, the better. So thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Fernanda, for this comment. Thank you, right?
And Marco from Mexico, something to say?
Morning. Well,
Hi, Marco.
this is a very interesting topic, especially probably for Latin American teachers, English teachers, and because I think because well, this is a perception that I have here in Latin America. Probably we live a life, a more monolingual life, usually in Spanish or probably, I don't know, in Portuguese in Brazil, right? So as apparently monolingual people, although there are many languages spoken in all Latin America, we tend not to understand very much about how the plurilingual world is, how, for example, people live their lives and share their languages or use their languages in Europe, even in the United States, for example, or other countries, which are multilingual, and where the use of several languages every day is more usual, right? So this is perhaps why probably there are more reasons why these topics are difficult, a little bit difficult to understand for Spanish speakers or Spanish speakers who live a monolingual life, as I
Right.
said, right?
Right. I agree with you.
But this is a very interesting topic and I think there should be more information every day about it. Thank you.
That's why, thank you so much, dear Marco. That's why I said that I need to read now. I was trying to understand. I thought that I had understood translanguaging, but now I need to read about plurilingualism.
More and more to
Yes.
learn, to do some research.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Fernanda.
May I make a comment? I think that by supposing that everyone in Latin America has a monolingual mindset is a mistake, because when it comes to learning languages, I think we have to be careful on how we see ourselves in the process, the identity. So, like, if we want to start talking about translanguaging, I think that we have to think about Asia, first of all, not even Europe, because Asia has such a variety of languages, you know, like the example of that Eugenia brought at the beginning. Can you hear me well? Because I'm
Yes,
using,
very well. Very well, very well.
because there's
Yes.
some cars passing by.
It's
So
okay.
I think that we have to be very careful when we name continents and people and countries, because if we're trying to create a plurilingual approach, I think that Mexico and, you know, Spanish-speaking countries and even Brazil, I mean, you have a huge language repertoire. We do that we can use in order to speak all the languages and learn all the languages. And our students really want this. Like Sarah said, she's the perfect example of a plurilingual mindset already. We just have to make ourselves see that more and practice more too.
Yeah.
But I think I started becoming more interested in translanguaging when I went to India, and I saw that many students spoke 3, 4, 5 languages, and they just code switched so easily. And I was like, wow. And people are scared, you know, sorry, yes.
That is true, Fernanda, and that they build up knowledge in all these languages. And in the case of Latin American context, right, it is quite varied. And also depending on let's say social the social practice of the language in which context as well, either professional or at home, right, considering native languages as well, right. In the case of Argentina, right, in which we've got quite a let's say a fluctuation of migrants all the time, right. It is also quite varied. As I said at the beginning, the world has become a globalized world in which languages come and go all the time, and those who let's say who choose to continue in a monolingual context are missing out, right. Many let's say many other ways of understanding the world that that are the, let's say, the results of this contextualization, fluidity within one language into the other. That's why I wanted to open this session with this song. This song that is a song in Spanish. It's a I would say it's a funny song that is full of words in English, right? And that it says we are more and more Yankees, or we are becoming more and more Yankees, in the sense that what does that mean? What is the importance of that? Does that mean that we are losing our own culture? I wouldn't say that. Is that there is, right, a recreation, a re-territorialization, right, of culture and the development of languages as well. We also should consider, right, the different age groups, right? Let's say the language that we use at work, the language, as I said before, we use at home, right? Within family. What do we mean by that? That's why it is very important. And I emphasize this idea. Why are we learning a language for? Because if we are learning a foreign language, and in this case, English, just to adapt to a world, well, that is a whole perspective. Or either, right, we learn, in this case, English, because we are discussing about that, to say what we would like to say and to stand up on our own position in English. Well, that is a different contextualization, because we will learn, we need to know about the way we as a let's say as a community, right, what is it that we want to say, or the others to see from us, right, in English. So it's a whole issue. Of course, there is quite a lot to go on researching and discussing, right? But it's very interesting, I would say.
Yeah, and this is the beginning, a great beginning, dear Eugenia. And before your final words today, let me remind that our next webinar will be on December the 8th, and the guest speaker will be Debra Suarez. I want to thank you very much, dear Eugenia, because this is something completely new for me. I want to learn about this, how to do these activities, how to engage other people to think about this, and I feel like I know nothing about these two interesting topics. And thanks, Fernanda. Thank you, Marco, Maria, and the people who have been listening to us and watching us in Facebook. And now it's time for you, dear Eugenia, to say goodbye, because I know that it's almost lunchtime in Argentina now.
Lunchtime in Argentina. Yes, yes. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate this Sunday morning, midday, afternoon, right? But it's still Sunday for all of us, and that you take the time to be here, sharing some insights and reflecting and discussing and all that. This is, I really appreciate that. So we'll keep in touch. I'll be participating in the other webinar. Thank you for the invitation again. Well, and we'll be in touch, I'm sure.
And God willing, we will be in one of your conferences in Argentina in person one of these days, months, or weeks. So we need,
Hopefully, right.
we need to
Okay.
save some pesos mexicanos and some soles peruanos and some
Colombian
American
pesos.
dollars. And Brazil,
right,
what's the
okay,
currency?
well.
What's the currency?
Colombian pesos.
And Colombian pesos as well. All right.
Okay.
Okay,
thank
people. Have a wonderful afternoon. See
you
you.
too. Enjoy. Bon
Bye-bye.
appetit. Goodbye, everyone, and see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.